Kenya. Land of endless savannas, land of ancient tribes, land of lakes and burning sunsets. Golden light rises slowly over the plains. A million wildebeest surge forward, lifting red dust into the air as they sweep across the savanna. Quiet rivers carve their way through deep green valleys. Welcome to Kenya. Welcome to the heart of the Great Migration. Celebrated for its extraordinary wildlife, this is a country where the savanna meets the ocean, where Maasai herders still move with the rhythm of the seasons, and where humanity is believed to have taken its very first steps. But to understand it, we have to begin at the beginning. Kenya stretches across East Africa, divided almost perfectly in two by the equator. One of the rare places on Earth where you can stand with one foot in the northern hemisphere and the other in the southern. And it is exactly this position that gives the country a landscape of surprising diversity. Something uncommon for a single nation. Here, the tropical shores of the Indian Ocean give way to the golden grasslands of the Masai Mara. Dense mountain forests, alive with movement and sound, gradually dissolve into the semi-arid deserts of the north. At the very center of it all rises Mount Kenya, the second highest peak on the continent, reaching 5,199 meters or 17,057 feet, surpassed only by Kilimanjaro, just beyond the border in Tanzania. Yet the true mark that shaped this land runs from north to south. The Great Rift Valley, a vast fracture in the Earth's crust that carved out dramatic lakes, steep escarpments, and dormant volcanoes. It is here, among these ancient formations, that some of the oldest hominid fossils have been discovered. For this reason, Kenya is often described as one of the cradles of humanity. Within this powerful natural setting, wildlife reveals itself with extraordinary force. It was here, in fact, that the idea of the Big Five emerged: the lion, the elephant, the rhinoceros, the leopard, and the buffalo. A term from the colonial era when these animals were considered the most difficult and dangerous to hunt on foot. Today, the phrase belongs not to hunting, but to conservation and photographic safaris. And nowhere does this legacy feel more alive than in the Masai Mara National Reserve. Each year, these plains transform into the stage for one of the greatest wildlife spectacles on Earth, the Great Migration. More than 1 million wildebeest cross the Mara River between Tanzania and Kenya in an unbroken movement of instinct, survival, and life. But Kenya is more than wild landscapes alone. It is also a mosaic of peoples, cultures, and traditions. The country is home to more than 40 ethnic groups, each with its own language, traditions, and way of life. Among the most well-known are the Kikuyu, the Luo, the Kalenjin, and the Maasai. The Maasai, in particular, are recognized around the world for their semi-nomadic pastoral lifestyle, for their striking red garments, and for traditions that have made them one of the most iconic symbols of Kenya. Across this land, more than 60 languages are spoken. A true polyphonic chorus that mirrors the country's remarkable human diversity. In the Central Highlands, where the air is cooler and the climate remains pleasantly humid, tea plantations roll across the hills as far as the eye can see. Kenya is often either the first or second largest exporter of black tea in the world, surpassing even Sri Lanka and India in certain years. A quiet, green wealth growing steadily among the slopes. Kenya, then, is far more than a single nation. It is an entire world, a land that transforms every few kilometers, where landscapes shift and where nature and local communities have learned, in many places, to coexist. And now, it's time to explore some of the most extraordinary and iconic places this country has to offer. Masai Mara. Every year, between July and October, something immense unfolds here. More than 1 million wildebeest cross the Mara River, following the rain and the promise of fresh grass. It's known as the Great Migration, one of the most documented natural spectacles on the planet. But the Masai Mara is not defined by a single season. Animals can be seen from great distances. Predators have little cover. Nairobi. A capital born from almost nothing. In the late 1800s, the British were constructing a railway to link the coast with the interior. For that, they needed a depot, a simple rest stop along the line. That stop would become Nairobi. Today, it is a city of more than 4 million people, restless, fast-moving, and defined by contrast. Glass towers rise in the center, while informal settlements stretch just a few kilometers away. And in between, traffic pulses through the streets, giving life to one of the most eccentric and creative expressions of the city, the matatu. These privately owned minibuses serve as public transportation, and no two are alike. Painted in bold graffiti, fitted with flashing LED lights and powerful sound systems, each matatu becomes a moving canvas. It is the only capital city in the world with a national park within its boundaries, a place that refuses to choose between wilderness and urban life, instead holding both in balance in its own way. Nairobi National Park. Just 10 minutes from the international airport, giraffes move quietly through tall grasslands. It sounds improbable, but it's real. Established in 1946, Nairobi National Park was the first national park in Kenya. It spans about 117 square kilometers, or 45 square miles. Small in size, yet remarkably rich in wildlife. 3 sides are fenced. The southern boundary, however, remains open. Through it, animals migrate freely toward the Athi Kapiti Plains, following the rhythm of the seasons. Diani Beach. Along the southern coast, the atmosphere shifts completely. No dust, no endless grasslands. Here there is only fine white sand and an ocean that changes from bright turquoise to deep blue. Diani stretches for about 17 kilometers, roughly 10.5 miles. Along a quiet coastline shielded by a coral reef that softens the force of the waves. Mount Kenya. We stand on the equator, and yet above us there is ice. Mount Kenya rises beyond 5,000 meters. 16,404 feet, making it the second highest peak in Africa after Kilimanjaro. Its glaciers are retreating quickly, but they have not yet disappeared. What makes the mountain remarkable is the dramatic shift in landscape as you ascend. At the base lies tropical forest, thick, humid, alive with elephants and buffalo. Above that comes the bamboo belt, dense and difficult to cross. Higher still, the vegetation changes again. Giant lobelias and senecio emerge, strange towering plants adapted to freezing nights and intense equatorial sunlight. Beyond 4,500 meters, around 14,764 feet, vegetation disappears entirely. Only stone, only ice. For the Kikuyu people, this mountain is sacred, the home of their god, Ngai. Amboseli National Park. Kilimanjaro does not stand in Kenya, yet from Amboseli it feels almost within reach. The park exists in the shadow of Africa's highest peak, and in many ways, it depends on it. The snow that melts on Kilimanjaro's summit seeps underground and resurfaces here, forming permanent swamps in the middle of an otherwise dry landscape. And that is why the elephants gather. Amboseli is home to some of the most closely studied elephant families in the world, monitored continuously for more than 50 years. The terrain is flat and open, offering little cover, which makes observation remarkably clear. Elephants move slowly across the plains in tight family groups, with Kilimanjaro's massive silhouette rising behind them. Lake Nakuru. There was a time when its waters turned almost entirely pink. Millions of flamingos gathered along the shallow shoreline, feeding on spirulina, a microscopic algae that flourishes in the lake's highly alkaline conditions. Nakuru's waters hold a high pH, inhospitable to many forms of life, yet ideal for that algae. In recent years, rising water levels and shifting salinity have altered the balance, and many flamingos have dispersed to other lakes within the Rift Valley. As this visual journey through Kenya comes to an end, we've moved from vast savannas and protected reserves to the warm shores of the Indian Ocean. We've explored not only landscapes, but the details and contrasts that give this country its distinct identity. If these images and stories have deepened your understanding and stirred your curiosity, then perhaps the next step is simple: to experience firsthand the extraordinary beauty of this remarkable land.